Hi, everybody. Lene here from Interview Like an Expert. I am so pleased to be bringing you a session focused on mindfulness and mindset today. So many people who have joined this group have said that mindset is one of the things that they want help with. And I think that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So today we're going to talk about some specific pieces of that. And so please welcome my guest today, Susan Patil-Swearingen. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, good to see you. I'd like to introduce Susan to all of you. Susan and I met because she was my first yoga instructor when I had the opportunity to take a beginning yoga class. And it is so nice that we have recently reconnected on Facebook. And so I'm really pleased to be able to bring this interview to all of you today. So Susan's background is so interesting. I think many of you will really find it fascinating. She had a 25-year career in corporate change management, organizational development, and executive coaching. But she made some intentional changes in her career over the last few years. Doesn't that sound exciting, everybody? I love that. She's now a certified yoga instructor, is also a trained teacher of mindful self-compassion through the University of California, San Diego School of Medicine, and she co-owns and runs a women's boutique in St. Augustine, Florida. How great is that? So I thought her prior experience in corporate America combined with her new career focus would allow her to bring us a lot of valuable perspective on work-life integration and share how we can use mindfulness practices that are accessible to all of us no matter what your level of experience. If you don't know what this is, don't worry about it. Now, Susan and I also talked about how we could provide information to everyone here that would really resonate with you, and we landed on the idea of talking about resilience as a skill, which is so important, particularly in this moment in time during our coronavirus pandemic. This is something that we can all see the importance of. So we've all had our routines disrupted, and many people are experiencing increased stress related to their jobs and their careers. So I thought this would be a great time to bring Susan in as an expert and help us navigate all of this. So first, let's start with resilience, Susan. I'd love to hear you speak for a moment about what resilience means.
Yeah, great. Resilience to me, when I think about resilience, I think about a rubber band. And, the simple idea of stretching, right? Stretching ourselves into so many things that are happening. And so the ability to have that elasticity, to kind of come back. This is going to happen in many different ways in our lives. And so how do we keep our own elasticity, so to speak, so that when we do get stretched, we want some stretch, but sometimes we get too stretched and we don't necessarily want to snap. Right? We want to do the things that we can when we can to keep ourselves healthy. So to me, that's the ability to basically come back to yourself, come back to your center when things do throw us off balance. That's an easier way, I think of when I think of resilience.
Yes, agreed. And, the other term that I think that may not be as familiar to everybody is mindful self-compassion, which you've studied. So in simple terms, what you told me when we spoke before is that this is about having a better relationship with yourself during times of adversity. But I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about mindful self-compassion as well.
Yeah. Mindful self-compassion, it's a lot of words. It's basically really having a functional and nice relationship with yourself, which it really sounds easy and it almost sounds obvious. But, the truth is, and even my own experience, is that I really have had to work on that. I've really had to bring in practices into my life that teach me how to do that. And the three components, if I just break it down, when you think of mindful self-compassion, it's this. So the first thing is mindfulness, right? So mindfulness, it's kind of a big deal right now. It's getting a lot of press, which is nice, right?
Yes.
And that's really another way, kind of mindset, right? So being aware of where you are in this moment on purpose with kindness. That's what mindfulness is. So that's really the key. You have to be aware of what you're going through in order to address it. The second part of mindful self-compassion is understanding that you're not alone. And this happens a lot if you just think about times that you're in fear or you're anxious. A lot of times our worldview gets really small. And we start feeling that pressure and stress, and we kind of forget that we're part of a larger collective of being human, really. So that's the second part. And the third part is then learning to be kind. Learning, so often we're so kind and compassionate to others, like to your pet, to maybe your kids, to partners, to your friends, but how often do you really turn that towards yourself? And those kind of three pieces, when used together, can really, build our resiliency. That's what we're talking about, our ability to be able to go through difficult times with ourselves and others.
Right. No, I agree. And I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with. The more I read, the more I hear, the more I speak to people, especially in what I do, right? When I'm working with people who are getting ready to look for a new job, even pre-coronavirus, so many people were so critical of themselves. If we were practicing interviewing, for example, right? And really just teaching people to be easier on themselves and understand that this is why we're doing what we're doing. You haven't practiced this forever, so you can't have this high expectation of yourself. And so we can talk about those expectations that people have in all these different areas of their life, whether it's their professional life, their personal life, whether it's how their house looks, right? And how, on top of their laundry they are, whatever it is, right? So the other thing that you talked about that I think, when we spoke to kind of prepare for this, was about the reality that you can't stop those negative thoughts and the worry. But, how do people address that? How do they alleviate their stress and anxiety then? I'd love to hear you share, some thoughts around that for everybody, because I think that's what so many people are seeking out. And that's why it's so great that we're hearing so much more about mindfulness these days.
Well, I think the first thing to understand is that you cannot stop your thoughts. I mean, the brain itself, that's what it does. I mean, that's its function, and you don't necessarily want to stop that. So the second part of that is that for survival, if you really think about us as animals, as there's a primitive part of our brain. Right. And that piece of us is the piece that is constantly scanning the environment for something that's wrong. There's a lot of research now on the brain, neuroscience. It's beautiful. And you have to understand that is how our brains are constructed. There is nothing wrong with you. There is more right with you than there is wrong with you. And that's something that we can all remember for ourselves. So we all are going to constantly have this worry brain, this negative brain. Okay, so we just, have to accept that. Everybody has that. Yep. And if we understand that, then what it is in mindfulness is about being able to manage ourselves, understanding that these thoughts continue to happen. So like something that I use and that I would recommend, and it sounds a little bit corny, is to schedule worry time. So when you find yourself worrying, it could be in the middle of the night, it could be in the middle of anything. I mean, as well as I do, as we're speaking with each other, there's all kinds of thoughts going on, right, for us that are not even dealing with this. Like, what am I going to say next? What if I don't say the right thing? What am I going to have for lunch? Oh, I didn't pay this bill. Okay, so you can tell yourself, okay, I'm going to have worry time. So, for example, I might schedule in my calendar 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe it's a half hour for worry time. And that's where you manage yourself in a way that says, I'm going to allow myself to worry about these things, but perhaps in a little bit more constructive way. So maybe that's the time where you can actually plan those things, or you can do the research that you need to do, or, do those things that are going to help you deal with the worry, instead of just kind of randomly following the stories of worry, which then increases our sympathetic nervous system starts to go into overdrive. Mm-hmm. And that's where we get anxiety, is when we are worrying about things that haven't happened in the future. So that's one way of managing kind of this worry kind of self of us. That's one area that I would recommend.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, no matter what it's related to. I mean, if we relate it to work, right? If I even relate it to my own work, if I've fallen behind on something, let's say a project that I'm working on, and I start worrying about it and I start stressing about it, I've learned to get better about telling myself there's nothing I can do about the past, right? There's nothing I can do about what I did or didn't do to this point. So just trying to teach myself to recalibrate my thoughts or to recalibrate my focus in that moment to adjust and change, it's really quite amazing, and by the way, sometimes it takes a little more time than, a minute or two, right? Sometimes it takes some more time than that, but I've learned that I have to tell myself it's okay. You're going to just do what you can do today, or you're just going to do what you can do right now, or you're going to drop everything else and deal with this right now. And it does bring you a sense of calm and control because you're not worrying about what you didn't do or how you're going to manage doing that. You just get in the moment. I think being in the moment, right? Being present in the moment is so helpful as well, because that can be a huge distraction, worrying about past and future and not being in the present.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Linnea, I mean, I think that is exactly what we're talking about. And I would add that a lot of times that voice in your head, at least for me, is not nice. Mm-hmm. It's just not. I mean, it tends to be critical. If someone else talked to me the way that sometimes I talk to myself, I would be absolutely floored. I mean, I would be very hurt. But yet I allow those voices in my head to speak to myself. So I think that, and that's where we're coming to mindful self-compassion, right? Which is the combination of these things, where it's being able to come to the present moment and know that I'm worrying about the past or the future, putting into place some ways to deal with that. But then that third piece is being kind to yourself, to say, okay, I know actually you're worrying about this because you care, right? And because you want to get better, and because you want to have a full life, and because you want to be resilient. Like, you really acknowledge that. I know that's where that's coming from. Right. And now is not the time. And I will do that later. And I know that's out of my control. So there is some tweaking that we can do to bring that compassion towards ourselves. And here's why. Because that will be returned. Because when you are presenting yourself to somebody, they will understand and will come through. When you have a better relationship with yourself, you will have better relationships with others. Because that's the basis. You cannot give to someone what you don't have. Again, easy, right? Simple to understand, not easy to do, because it takes practice. And that's where all this comes through, even in the interviewing situation, where a lot of us feel like we've got to say the right answer. But the truth is, if you don't really know yourself, or you're not really with yourself in a way that's clear, that will not come off as genuine and authentic. And it's those kinds of practices, again, with the resiliency and our ability to manage our anxieties, that's where it starts to come into play, is when you are trying to go forward with certain goals you have in your life. And it will start to come out in ways that really are going to be helpful towards what you're trying to do.
Yep. I love that you say that you can't give what you don't have. I think that's so true. And I think that people do deplete themselves, right, before they deplete, anything for anybody else. And one of the things I love that you said was talking to yourself as if you're talking to somebody else. Because you had mentioned, right, the way that we talk to ourselves sometimes can be damaging or be so negative, and we would not talk to other people that way. We would not talk to our friends or family that way. But many people feel critical of themselves. And so I loved that, when we talked, you talked about saying things like just reminding yourself, hey, I've got your back. Yeah. It's kind of like your higher self that you're talking to, right? Reminding yourself that it's okay. It's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. I tell myself that a lot when I'm worried. It's going to be fine. It's going to work out. Don't just take that first step, right? Whatever it is that you have to tell yourself. So I think that reminding yourself and literally tell. I know that, to your point, people think that sounds kind of corny, that you would actually tell yourself that. But when you start doing this, it does make a difference, because you're caring for yourself the way you care for others.
Yes.
I know as women, right, women carry such a different load, and are caretakers by nature, right? So we tend to sometimes, I think, even more so take care of other people ahead of ourselves. It's not saying that men don't have this issue. They absolutely do. But I think that women may have it a little bit more intensely because of the types of responsibilities that they just, again, to your point of our just kind of our instinct, right? We're the caretakers, and we're worried about making sure everybody else is happy and cared for and healthy. So
Yes.
that makes a difference too.
Yes, it does. And think about this. When the more that you practice these things in the brain, you do create new pathways. I mean, this is the amazing thing about the brain, is that it can still create new pathways. So every time you do that, it's creating a new path. And that is exciting, because that is a long-term effect on you, right? That makes you a better person. That makes you, when you land that job, it makes you that person that can commit, that can do the things that you said you were going to do in the interview, right? Why? Because you have built a solid foundation for yourself. That's what we're talking about. That's what resiliency is. That's why we talk about mindfulness. That's why we talk about breathing and meditation. Why? Because you want to live your life from a more full way of being. And that will impact every part of your life. So it is a victory. Even one time when you can say to yourself, oh, I found myself worrying. It's okay. I understand that I need to worry. Right now is not the time. That's not of service. What can I do to help myself? Every single time you do that is a victory.
That's right.
And that's really important. It doesn't have to be this big thing that you're doing all the time. I don't have time for that. This can happen on the fly. As soon as you catch yourself doing it, let yourself off the hook. I got this. I got ways of managing this. Wow, Susan, you're doing a great job. I got your back. I'm with you. And then move on. And that really can be done on a regular basis.
Yep. I find myself, like, if I'm out for a walk when I'm supposed to be, wanting to just be relaxing, and things start popping into my brain. Oh, you need to do this, or you forgot to do that. And I've now started telling myself, don't worry about it. You'll deal with it when you get home, right? And in that moment, I don't have a phone with me. I don't have anything to write anything down. And I'm just trying to trust myself, right?
Yes.
Trust that I will know what I need to do when I need to do it. And don't worry about these things and let them cloud my thinking when I'm wanting to be in a different space and wanting to detach from thinking, from all the thoughts.
Right. Do you want to do a 2-minute example of this?
I would love to. I think that would be really great to kind of help everybody see, like, how could I do this? How could I actually incorporate this? Yes.
Yeah. So this is what I call a self-compassion break.
Okay.
So really 2 to 3 minutes. So I'm just going to have you sit in your chair, just in a comfortable position. You don't have to twist your legs into a pretzel. Just feet on the floor, always nice. Close your eyes if you feel okay with that. Close your eyes and just for a moment, take a couple of deep breaths. That's coming home to yourself, feeling your feet on the ground, your seat on the chair. Your hands are just by your sides or in your lap, just comfortable. Take a deep breath in here. Exhale and just kind of let it go. Just going to spend a few minutes with yourself here. And then I'd like you to bring to mind something that you are worrying about. Something where you notice that it's uncomfortable. Don't choose something that's huge right now, not a huge, huge worry, just something that's fairly uncomfortable, just so we can practice together. Are you getting ready for an interview? Are you sending in a resume? Are you just anything like that? What are you kind of worried about? Just bring it into your mind right now. Kind of get it clear on it. Then I'd like you to recognize that there are probably other people that are dealing with this similar feeling, this similar kind of worry or anxiety, fear, anticipation, fellow people that are doing something similar or maybe different, but are having the same experience of what you're having. And kind of broaden that feeling of, okay, I'm not sitting alone here with this feeling. What I'd like you to do now is just kind of turn to one of those imaginary people, and what would you say to that person? Like, hey, you've got this. You're prepared. I know you're going to do your best. I think you're going to get it done. You can even say, hey, buddy, you've got this, or hey, sweetie, you're okay. Just what would you say to that other person to just help comfort them, to help support them? Now, with those words in mind, I'd really like you to try to turn towards yourself now and try saying those words to yourself. Maybe you say your own name and those words of support and comfort. Like I said, like you've got this. I've got your back. How about that? I support you. Saying that to yourself in a kind way. And as you're doing that, maybe even ask yourself, what do you need? Like, what do you wish someone else would say to you? You've got great skills. You've had so much success. What are the words that you need to hear right now? And whatever those words are, say it to yourself. Give that to yourself. Truly, openly, freely. And then as you do that, doing that with genuine kindness. Again, whatever words you might use towards yourself that feel okay, your name, buddy, sweetie, honey, whatever those are, just as gentle as you would with someone you really care about. Just give that to yourself for a moment. Nice. Then just release all the practice, all the thoughts, and just take a deep breath, coming back into where you're sitting, feeling your feet, feeling your seat, taking a deep breath in here. Just open your eyes gently, exhale. Come back.
Lovely.
Self-compassion break.
That's so great. I mean, the reason I love this, for so many reasons, because I've been starting to really understand the benefits, but Susan, as you kind of mentioned, right, a lot of people are looking for jobs right now. A lot of people are stressed about their careers. And, we talked about the fact that we're so transaction-based as a society, right? And we're conditioned to this. And we then start allowing our external circumstances to validate us, right? So if I don't have a job, it somehow is a reflection of me as a person, but it's not. And so this is such an important exercise for people going through that transition. And trust me, it's a transition. Things are going to get better, right? But in order for you to help that process along for yourself, doing something like this, I love this idea of just imagine your best friend, imagine your husband, your wife, your partner, whomever, right? A family friend, anybody, a school friend, somebody you're close to, and how you would comfort them, and using those skills for yourself. I think that that's just not something that people naturally think to do. So it's such an important lesson, and having this relationship with yourself is so important. So that is amazing. And so you guys can all see how easy that is to do. It's just a little bit of breathing, a little bit of considering what are those things you're worried about, reminding yourself that you've got this, that you're going to do your best, and that's the best, that's all you can do. That's okay. It's not about the end result. It's about the journey. And I know that, for some people that's an uncomfortable concept too, but it really is. And the more you can embrace that, the more I think content you will be day to day, the more positive you will be in your approach to whatever it is, whether it's looking for a job, whether it's getting more order in your house, whatever it is that kind of gets you on edge, right? Or has you stressed or anxious. So amazing. Thank you so much, Susan.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Really loved it. I think that everybody will really, this will resonate with a lot of people right now. So I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today. And I'm so excited to share your information with everybody in the group. So thank you. Thank you. You have a
All right.
wonderful
Thank
day.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.